Trans-European Policy Studies Association has the tradition of formulating recommendations to the incoming EU Council Presidency. These recommendations are formulated by experts from the network without necessarily representing the views of TEPSA or its member institutes. This set of recommendations to the incoming German Council Presidency has been compiled by Nicoletta Pirozzi, Ilke, Toygür and myself, Funda, Tekin. We all know that the German government is taking over the presidency in challenging times. Yet, expectations for leadership throughout the European Union are high, as are hopes that the presidency will give substance to the claim "Together for Europe's Recovery." Germany has the unenviable task not only of guiding the Union and its member states out of the crisis generated by the COVID-19 pandemic, but also of encouraging them to design a credible strategy for longer-term reform. We plea the German presidency to invest boldly and smartly in the future. This requires a combination of different elements: political will by leaders, courageous actions by institutions, and support of citizens. In this context, we should not forget about the Conference on the Future of Europe. Likewise, it requires recollection of the EU's core values, seeking basic consensus on the rule of law shared by all member states. Respective conditionality needs to become an inbuilt feature in the MFF and the COVID-19 recovery plan. Finally, it requires choosing the topics wisely. The presidency will have to deal with the MFF, the Brexit, and building digital and technological sovereignty. However, we want to highlight 4 policy areas in particular: economic and social recovery, climate change and sustainability, resilience of the EU's project, and the EU's global role.
TEPSA has 3 main recommendations for the German presidency to support the European Union's economic recovery. First, we recommend that the German presidency support and defend the European Commission's proposal for a recovery and resilience facility, which is of an appropriate size given the economic magnitude of the current crisis, as well as its composition being composed of both grants and loans. Second, we recommend that the German presidency resurrect the proposal for the creation of a budgetary instrument for convergence and competitiveness, because this would have been a permanent feature of the EU budget rather than a temporary facility as the current proposal for a recovery and resilience facility. Finally, we recommend that the German presidency initiate a conversation on changing the mandate of the European Central Bank, which was created for a different time and is no longer fit for purpose.
Without any doubt, the German presidency will be a recovery presidency. But this recovery cannot be merely economic and it cannot be path-dependent. It needs to be focused on the climate, on the environment, and above all, it needs to be transformative. The European Green Deal has laid out the reform program that now needs to be implemented, and the German presidency must make sure not to deviate from this program. Globally, the EU needs to exploit to the fullest its climate diplomacy potential in order to engage in multilateral and bilateral partnerships to overcome the geopolitical divide on climate action. At home, structural, policy and ideational transformation is required, and here potentially the most important point is the new EU climate law that needs to be negotiated in a way that it is not compromised by the recovery plans. The EU presidency will hence need to be sensitive to the trade-offs in between the Green Deal, the Recovery Plan for Europe and EU climate action. As a central outcome, it is necessary that Germany turns the next 6 months into a truly transformative presidency towards a sustainable European way of life.
The German presidency has a key role in leading Europe out of the crisis, not only economically, but also in full respect of European core values. Resilience requires holding on to these core values: human rights, freedom, equality, democracy, and the rule of law. In order to show that these values are shared by all member states, it is important to swiftly agree on the strategic guidelines in the field of justice and home affairs, which outline the priorities for the next 5 years. An important aspect in guaranteeing democratic rights and equality is tackling hate speech and disinformation, for which the Commission's recent efforts provide a good starting point. Another fundamental aspect is addressing violations of the rule of law, which requires concrete actions such as introducing a rule of law mechanism in the multi-annual financial framework.
A resilient and influential role of the EU in the world starts at home. The work of the German presidency needs to strengthen EU unity and bridge divides between member states on concrete policy issues. One of these issues are the EU's relations with China. The postponement of the EU-China summit this fall is an opportunity to reassess and possibly fortify the EU's approach to China. The German presidency rightly aims to strengthen the EU's ability to act in the area of security and defense. This priority needs to be reflected in the new multi-annual financial framework and in an ambitious budget for the European Defence Fund. In a world on fire, Europe needs a ring of friends. That is why the German presidency should decisively support accession talks with Western Balkan countries, help African countries to securely recover from the corona crisis, and fight disinformation on COVID-19 and the EU.